Join us for 3 days in Orlando, Florida in March 2026 for an event designed to equip IT professionals like you with the tools, knowledge, and strategies to navigate the ever-changing cybersecurity landscape. Secure your spot and register to join us for 3 days of immersive learning, collaboration, and skill building with hands-on hacking labs and much more. Network with peers from around the globe. Share experiences and learn from real-world case studies, all aimed at enhancing your capabilities as an IT professional. Elevate your experience at the after party. Registration is now open. Register now for Zero Trust World 2026 and take the first step towards a more secure tomorrow.
Good morning and welcome to our webinar, which is not about Detect. And instead of doing our Detect webinar today, we're actually going to do an open Q&A session. And I'm joined by another Irish person that isn't Rob.
That's not Rob. And I've got hair.
And you've got hair.
Yeah.
So it's Sami, Jenkins CEO, COO, and co-founder.
Secret CEO. It's okay.
Yeah, the real boss at ThreatLocker.
The real boss at ThreatLocker.
So we're here really just to give you a little bit of background on why the webinar isn't Detect. We obviously had quite a few technical issues over the last few weeks. All of those have now hopefully been put to bed, and we're continuing to make sure they don't happen again. But that's caused a delay in our products being pushed. So our new Detect version, which has got some really cool updates, which is very exciting, is not going to be released this week where it was supposed to be, and it should be released within the next 2 weeks. So we'll be scheduling a new webinar to show that off as soon as that's available. Instead, though, we didn't want to waste the session. We've obviously got a lot of people scheduled. We want to use it as a Q&A to ask us whatever questions you want about the product, about ThreatLocker, about anything you want within reason. I'm probably going to be bullied quite a lot throughout this, and unlike Rob, it's hard for me to argue back, so please go easy. So we're going to open it up to Q&A, and let's see what we've got as our first question.
So we have, can you tell us about the roadmap for the Linux agent?
Okay, so Linux agent is currently, I wish I knew all of the builds. There's a lot of builds supported. We are about to release Detect on that as well. But more importantly, the big update we're doing right now is version 3. And the reason version 3 is so important is because of the way it's built. The way Linux kernel drivers are built on older versions of Linux, they have to be tied to an exact operating system version, which means if it updates, it has to get a new build of ThreatLocker or any driver. With the new version 3, we're actually able to, and unfortunately, I know a lot about Windows and less about Linux, but we don't have to do a new upgrade every single time, which means we can push builds faster, and that hopefully means all of the other features. So I believe right now we have Allowlisting, Ringfencing, network control, all built in, and storage control built into Linux. If I'm wrong and I'm looking at our beta versions, I apologize. And Detect is about to come out, but the new version 3 is really going to help with that, and it's going to allow us to deliver faster, more builds. Outside of that, it is working. We do use it in our own production environment, so you know, feel free to try it out and give us feedback.
Okay, next question is patch management roadmap. We need an update since the original session in Q1, please.
Okay, so we've done a lot in patch management over the last year, and a lot of it has been how do we optimize, how do we improve patches. So I think in our original session, it didn't support the ability to restart apps automatically, and I hope if this isn't released, it's imminent release, because I always look 2 stages ahead. We now have the ability to do app restarts and computer restarts, if not now, very, very soon. I need to check where we are on the actual release on that. In addition to this, we added this ability to support upgrades from Windows 10 to Windows 11, and we are adding operating system patching going forward. If you didn't use patch management before, I think one of the coolest parts about patch management is that it does it on hash. And this is really important, because what you'll notice, and one of the features I actually want to change in patch management is to be a little less aggressive. You'll notice when you first deploy, ThreatLocker is going to tell you you've got a bunch of stuff out of date that you didn't know. And the reason for that is most patch management systems look at the add remove program, see what version you're on. But a lot of vulnerable applications, I heard about a new vulnerability in 7-zip that was just released, or I guess found in October. they're portable apps, so you don't even know they exist. So what we're actually doing is checking the hashes of the application. We'll alert on it, even if you're not using patch management. We'll tell you if you're running out-of-date versions of the software. We are going to add a slight delay into that because people are getting alerts every day. It's out of date, and then Chrome suddenly updates itself. But it's really nice because it means you know that you're running out-of-date software without having to rely on the add remove programs in the registry. And operating system patching will be fully available by the end of the year.
Okay. Are there any plans to add SASE to ThreatLocker?
Well, Sassy, I don't know if there's any plans directly. So we have some stuff coming up in Zero Trust World, and we're moving more towards SASE environments. I think the web control's done some of that. We're also trying to move towards more Zero Trust networks as well as Zero Trust firewalls, which is what we're doing now. I think we're going to see more. I don't want to talk about too much, but it's definitely something we're discussing. And how do we move towards those features? Not necessarily. We try to look at things slightly different in ThreatLocker. Rather than trying to match feature sets in the industry, we try and solve problems. And that's kind of what we've done with web control and what we've done with network control. Of course, that brings us in certain directions, and I think we'll continue to run in there. I'm just going to make sure we've marked them as
Yeah,
answered.
I've marked them as go along. So why do you limit elevation control that if you want to remove users from local admin and servers, they must be placed into a group GPO that permits them log on locally? Doesn't that defeat the purpose?
I do not know of. So, limiting elevation control to remove users.
To remove users, doesn't that defeat the purpose? Entire purpose of limiting people from not being allowed into local admin groups.
I would say that's a bug if we're doing that, but we don't allow the built-in administrator to be removed.
Okay.
Because if you remove the built-in administrator, you essentially can lock yourself out. I do not know of that feature, and if that's the case, I'm going to bring that up after this webinar to see if that's real. I would suspect maybe it's related to your environment. We have removed admins from our servers on this, so I don't know why it wouldn't work, but maybe there's a certain other group policy that's causing the issue.
We'll get that looked at today. Is ThreatLocker still working on syslog ingester, and what is the roadmap for integrating detection policies around the syslog data?
Okay, so syslog ingester is fully live. We ingest all of our logs from our own firewalls on it. It's a hell of a lot of data, and I think we're ingesting hundreds of millions of rows a day. So you can put that, it rolls out, and it will pull the logs into the unified audit. If you're going to commit to a larger amount of logs, make sure you talk to your sales person or account manager first, because we want to make sure your costs are reduced. If you're committing to a larger bundle, bear in mind we're actually counting the bytes of the log. A lot of people who charge by ingestion, I don't really understand. They'll do like a bandwidth cost or something like that, which includes the SSL encryption and all of that. We're actually telling you that, hey, there's 160 bytes in this log. That's what you're being billed for. So sometimes people are saying, well, that seems like a lot per gigabyte. But if you actually compare it to other platforms, you'll see it's substantially lower. And then you get to keep that for the full duration of your unified audit, which I think if you're buying unified is 90 days. We are planning to add it into Cloud Detect, so you'll be able to process all of those logs through your Cloud Detect agents and send them to MDR. There's a lot of updates coming to our Detect platform, and that's going to help with that as well. But you should be able to ingest that, but not just that, but also other cloud services we want to bring into Cloud Detect.
Okay, can you walk us through how license recycling works for AVD environments when we all scale and generate, destroy, and respawn pool servers?
Respawn servers.
Respawn.
Okay. It depends on your licensing setup. You can choose two licensing models. You can choose user-based licensing or device-based licensing. If you choose device-based licensing, if you're respawning the servers, as long as you have a setting, it's called repurpose. Repurpose the host name. So essentially, if you spin up like Danny Jenkins as a VDI, when it goes and then it recycles, it's going to spin up as Danny Jenkins. It'll actually say, oh, this is Danny Jenkins' VDI. Let me repurpose that and assign that to there. And that would be the best way with host-based licensing. If you're creating random devices every single time, what I'd recommend is that you have two options there. One is you have some kind of script that just removes the old devices from the portal. The other one is that you just do it based on user-based licensing, and then it will just count the usernames on that.
Okay,
Well,
so
there's a lot of questions coming in
there's
super fast here.
a lot of questions here. Trying to go in order. Why does ThreatLocker not provide visibility into at least the full catalog of policy names so that we know what is being monitored, and the ability to disable or override specific policies or modify the response for our environment? Other platforms offer this, and that is a massive pain point for
Okay,
us utilizing Detect.
I'm trying to find
It's
the,
Ed Gibson.
because I'm struggling to understand. Further up or down? No.
And it's fifth or sixth down.
Okay, why does
Yeah.
ThreatLocker not provide visibility into the full catalog of policy names and how it's being monitored, and the ability to decide or override, disable or override policies or modify the response in our environment? Okay, so I'll deal with the last part of that. You can modify the response when the policy gets triggered, and you can go in and basically create an exclusion, so it's completely excluded or modify in your environment, and you can copy the policy and create your own. The I think that there's two parts to this, and I don't think anybody gives you a full list of all detection policies. We've bundled everything in, and one of the nice things about the new version of ThreatLocker Detect that's coming is you're going to be able to see a list of all those policies in there. You can override them, you can copy them, and one of the nice things about the list is it's actually going to link you back to the community policy. So if you re-add it into your environment yourself, then it will override that and say there's a custom version of that detect policy. At the moment, you only see it once it's triggered, and once it's triggered, you can go in and modify that policy. And just for those who aren't following, essentially, when you're using ThreatLocker's EDR, you can create your own detection and response policies. And one of the really nice things about it is you can actually tie it into our zero trust controls. So you can say things like, hey, if there's 10 invalid logins in the Windows event log, I want to disable RDP until someone's reviewed it. Or if someone copies 50 files to a USB drive, I want to disable USB access because that's too many and it looks like data exfiltration. In addition to that, we also have our built-in, and the built-in are really looking for detection on policies. They'll apply either scores or direct alerts. So something very obvious, if someone tries to run Mimikatz on your machine, we're going to say, hey, Mimikatz is running. This is definitely a threat. We're going to create a new an alert for you to say this is happening, and that will go to the MDR, the SOC, or whoever you're using. In the event of other policies, it might be a little bit more nuanced. You might not want to trigger an alert immediately. Maybe a local admin account's created that's not necessarily going to an indicator of compromise all by itself, but they'll apply different scores to that. And then if they see multiple scores, then they'll send an alert and say, hey, we've now found this is going to happen. We constantly add those policies in place. I believe they're all published in the community, but probably John Liston's the better person to ask for that.
Check.
So once you add something from the community that matches a policy, it overrides that policy. Going forward, one of the new things on Detect is your ability to see all of those policies, which we don't show all of the conditions because we don't want to issue a playbook for our attackers to say, hey, let's try and tiptoe around this set of policies. It's if we do that, then detection's never the best way to defend yourself anyway. The best way to defend yourself is block things by default, close ports on your firewall, but detection is that backup plan. So if someone gets onto a machine and knows, hey, this is ThreatLocker's policy that does this, let's tiptoe around it and try and avoid getting triggered by the SOC or the MDR as long as possible.
Okay, do you want me going in order of questions?
Whatever you think is a good question.
How do exclusions in ThreatLocker Detect work? We get quite a lot of the same alerts through. Do exclusions just decrease and the threat score increase, or hide them altogether?
Okay, so exclusions work based on they're applied to machines, and you can apply them based on any condition in it. So, for example, you might say there's a policy maybe to detect IP scanning tools. That's a good indicator of compromise. You might say, well, I want to exclude if the path is advanced IP scanner, because maybe you do that every week. So you can go and add that, and it's going to add the exclusion to the machine. I believe you can add it to the entire organization. There is a change happening, not in the new build that's about to come out, but in a future build of Detect, where some of the policies will be a learning mode process. And this allows us to be a little bit more aggressive on policies. So one of the things when you're looking for indicators of compromise is you're trying to figure out, how do I get as many alerts of real threats as possible without getting false positives? And a good example of this is we constantly get these false positives from ConnectWise script. They'll say that PowerShell's running in an elevated mode. This needs to be changed. one of the things we can do is these policies that are maybe too aggressive to put live for everyone, we can enable them in a learning mode, which will then learn the environment and say, hey, does this policy, is there exceptions I should automatically build by myself? Of course, some policies should never have exceptions, but you can go in and add an exception right now. I believe you can only add for the workstation. Let me check, actually. I'll go into my response center and just see. I want to add an exclusion. Actually, I can't. Okay, I can't seem to add an exclusion on mine right now because I'm running on the new dashboard. So we'll just skip that for the moment.
Speaking of dashboards, do we have any plans to update network controls dashboard? Is one of the questions.
Okay. I'd like some clarification. Do we mean charts, or do we, maybe if you can put that in there, or do you mean additional functionality?
Okay.
If it's charts, we have a lot more charts and dashboards coming. I actually pull back. We've got a lot of them complete. One of the problems I have is we're redirecting people to a dashboard rather than to what they actually want to see, which is the policies. So I think if that's what you mean, but if you mean something else, the other change that's coming to network control is the flat policies, which I didn't realize how much I was going to love. The ability to apply enterprise policies below computer policies, or computer policies above enterprise policies, that we've added in application control. I'll tell you, what I love about it is I can now have one PowerShell policy for my entire organization rather than having 6 for 6 different groups, and I can make one exclusion at the computer level. We are adding the same in network control, so you can have a deny RDP at the organization and then put an exclusion at the computer level if you want. So that's going to be a nice upgrade. But I'm not sure if you're talking about charts or anything else. Okay, there's an easy one here. I saw it. Where's it gone? Irish Mike. What did he say?
He just said I was an improvement over Rob, so.
Well, why wouldn't we announce that one?
Yeah. I'm going through the list in order, kind of.
Okay, so we got. Okay, what else have we got?
So probably a silly question. Will there be a keystroke logger implemented in the future?
I'm intrigued to know why you'd want a keystroke logger implemented. There is no intention of implementing a keystroke logger. However, the new detect does allow you to. There is a waiting period to turn it on. So if you don't want to allow it to be on, because sometimes it's right, too much software has too much power on your machine. In the new version of detect, you'll be able to run scripts and remediation scripts. There's a waiting period. So if you have another tool and you don't want to add another tool that can do that, you just have to not turn it on.
There is one about a hospital environment, quite a bit up the top.
So somebody's put it, the features.
Yeah, somebody's replied with features to the question earlier.
Okay, so they put a chart. Yes,
Yeah.
so we are building dashboards for every element. What I'm trying to do is avoid it becoming the center and just the ability to show important information. If I've got a high deny count, for example, and I know we have it live for application control, or we have it completed for application control, but haven't released it. It's going to go into every module. I would like to move it away from the configuration pages and into one portal, but we're trying to test usability on that. What was the hospital question?
Hospital question. We have a hospital environment with many devices and access needs, including QR devices without screensavers, display boards, and specifically groups with specific application access. How does ThreatLocker handle this diversity? And what is the best way to map it in the MECM groups?
Okay, so I think hospitals is one of the biggest sectors we actually deal with, and often people overthink how complicated they're going to be because of the amount of old software, and people associate old software and unique software with difficulties when it comes to things like whitelisting and ring fencing. That's not actually true, because one of the nice things about older software is it doesn't change. If you think about software that constantly updates, it constantly changes. Old software sits the same. The hashes don't change. The files don't change. It does exactly what it did the day before. There's two stages to any deployment. This is my personal opinion, and there's 56 or 60. How many solution engineers do
we have? Close to 70. I had 6 start yesterday.
So. 70 solution engineers in ThreatLocker, and they might give different opinions on a rollout like this. My my preference is we should take 2 stages when doing a deployment. If I was doing a deployment in a hospital myself, my first goal would be to take the environment as it is and to say, how do we go and learn your environment, figure out what's running, and make sure that continues to run without any other change that isn't unauthorized. And that just means deploying the agent. It will learn all of the software you have, all of the weird applications you have, and it will create policies. It will impose ring fencing policies for things like PowerShell and Office out of the box to make sure that you've got those high risk applications taken care of, and it will continue to log the data for the other ones. Once you've done that, we then start implementing other recommendations, and we have this product called or feature called DAC, if you like, and it's currently paused because we're about to push it live. If anyone's like, why is my DAC report showing 100% passed? I've heard of that, and the reason being is we're moving it to live databases. It's been in beta, and what that does is that shows you all of the recommendations and configurations that you'd have in a normal environment, and it also and will show even better the risks associated with that in them. You mentioned the screens that are always on. One of our clients is Heathrow Airport, and they've got very similar complex environments throughout the world. So when you when you deploy, you're first going to learn as it is, and you're going to say, we'll take it as is. Then we'll start implementing policies like, hey, I want to put lock screens on monitors. Let's pick this group of computers, this group of computers, and we can exclude groups from there. We then want to do things like, I want to ring fence applications and take away applications. The kiosks, really, really easy. You have them in a group, you say, this is what they need. They shouldn't do anything else. And I'd start locking down the other applications with more granular detail and start pulling back the stuff that shouldn't be there. I never like to start blocking things on day one, because you're going to have one of the challenges with going from a fully open environment to a zero trust environment is users can now no longer download the games they had before. They can't download the Chrome extension. So you're going to have a little bit of a political fight. It shouldn't be a difficult one, but you're going to have a little bit of a political fight. If during the first 6 months, if someone tries to run some new software that they need in the business, it's going to pop up and say, hey, you're trying to run something you don't need, hit request, and you can approve it in 60 seconds. But if you've made the user mad because you blocked their game on deployment, then you're going to get into another fight.
I made some people mad. ThreatLocker, I blocked Spotify.
Oh, did you do that in the office?
Yep. So,
yeah, and Netflix and everything else.
Netflix and everything else.
Just to be clear, I'm the nice one here.
Yeah.
So, so I would say that it's not difficult. First of all, everyone thinks it's going to be difficult. Take the environment as it is first. Start to pull back after the fact. Focus on the high risk areas first. Of course, if there's remote access tools, let's block them. We can filter by them if we don't need them. Of course, if we're using remote access tools, then we shouldn't block them. If there's games, I always like to push them like 3 to 6 months down the road. And then I'll start ring fencing the applications. And the nice thing about ThreatLocker is it looks at your history. So if you want to say, I want to ring fence this application, you just hit the little electric button next to in the policy. It will tell you everything it's done in the last 90 days. You can remove anything you don't like and allow everything you do like. And it's very easy because it's going to tell you what you're doing.
Okay, so will there be the ability to copy config manager policies to other orgs?
I didn't know there wasn't that ability. So I would say I'm going to mark it as a bug because at the end of this, and because it should be consistent.
Rob is watching, and he's CPO in charge of products, so he can add it to his list of to-dos.
I mean, I think we have copy policies on nearly everything, so there's no reason we shouldn't be able to do a config manager. The only thing that's different about config manager is the only product that we acquired as opposed to built from the ground up, but there's no reason they can't copy those policies full stop to other orgs.
Really important question. What is the after party theme at Zero Trust World 26? People want to get their outfits ready.
Okay, so it's space age theme, and I don't know what to wear. So
can't outdo Iron Man.
I'm not going to wear a Darth Vader suit because that would be.
You'd be one of many, I guess. One of
many, and I'm definitely not wearing a Star Trek suit because that's just proper nerdy. And outside of that, I have no. You have any suggestions?
No, I was thinking Alien versus Predator, but I don't know. That's a complex.
I don't think they're allowed to call us aliens anymore.
I know, that's true.
So,
we have our citizenship. It's okay.
Yeah, we're no longer aliens.
We're no longer aliens.
So Okay, what else have we got on here? This is a lot of questions.
Okay.
But if we don't get to your question, it's not because we don't like you. It's just because
There's a lot of questions.
there's one here from Rob Allen. It says Irish Mike is getting cancelled.
Yeah,
We'll get Rob a nice wig. He'll be happy.
we'll get him some hair.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go to. Oh, I had one there a minute ago. Is there any plans to implement the famous word AI into ThreatLocker? If so, what is there? In what regards? You know we love AI.
Okay, so I'll split AI into two categories right now, because what's happened is AI has been, a lot of stuff's been relabeled as AI that wasn't called AI 2 years ago or 3 years ago. So, for example, if we learn applications from 6 million endpoints and we catalog how an application interacts with other applications, we know that this file changes. And if a new customer on board and says, hey, I'm running this dental software that happens to change its hash every single time, ThreatLocker is able to look across our history of this dental software and say, this dental software changes its hash all the time. Let's build a policy that actually works for this dental software rather than just adding a hash-based rule to allow it. That is advanced algorithms, machine learning, large data, big data. And today that's called AI. So, and I think what's happened is we've had this creation of LLMs, which are fantastic technology, the world's most advanced spell checkers. And it's used the ability to, it's created this big hype around AI. So what's happening is a lot of companies are trying to introduce the word AI into their marketing. Just be careful of what is actually based on LLMs and based on historic, very advanced things. Even image recognition. If you think about driving a Tesla in 2018, that was called image recognition, was able to determine, is this a trash can or is this a person or a car? Again, that's being relabeled as artificial intelligence. And it by description is really artificial intelligence. So I think we have to group it into that, and we do use a lot of various algorithms in our software already. The other areas where we use AI, I'll say where we use LLMs, is a backup to deciding website classifications. And I'm going to give you an example of this. If I classify 1,000 adult websites, pornographic websites, not me personally, I wasn't doing that.
Sure.
But
you went all these evenings.
as a human, and we have a team of people that does that, by the way. They thought it was the best job they ever applied for. But if your job is to classify websites, you go to the website and they say, we think this is bad. We're going to add this to this dictionary. Or gambling, we're going to add this to the dictionary. I think the average success rate is 994 sites added to a list of explicit or gambling are out of 1,000 are correctly added to the list by a human. It goes as low as 990, as high as 999. But ultimately, humans make mistakes when looking at a website saying, is this an adult site or is it not a site? So, and bear in mind, it's not 1,000 sites visited, it's 1,000 sites that get added. Say 6 of them are wrong. If I do the same test with an LLM, I'll say, the LLM has about 700 sites out of the 1,000 sites are correctly added to the list. The other 300 are wrong. So what that means is we have a really, really bad website test, if you like. Now, it's also a lot cheaper. What we decided to do was merge those technologies together. And I use the word technologies as if people are technologies. So, and get a combined result. And what's really, really cool about this is now we have, and it's not foolproof, but more like 1 in 5,000 sites added to that list are added wrongly, because we've got a human comparing it and a machine comparing it. And when we combine those two together, we get really, really good accuracy. I think the wrong thing to do as a CEO is to look at AI as a way of cutting costs. And if we wanted to go and get rid of 30 people in ThreatLocker and say we can just replace them with artificial intelligence, our product quality would get lower. What the right thing to do is say, how can I solve problems and make my product better using AI, which is what we've done by adding as a second check, but also adding it as an interim check where a human can't classify fast enough. So when something gets logged, we don't know what this is. We can use AI, but then a human can look at it and reclassify it within the same period. So that's my thoughts on it.
Well, I just know AI has made recruiting probably a little bit harder because everybody's putting their resume into ChatGPT, putting the job link into it, and then it's matching it. So when they come into us, they have every skill set we want. And then we interview them and they may have 5% of it.
Yeah.
So it's made some of that a little bit harder. We do a lot of technical tests for SEs, for support before we even hire them. So
It
we
is
get a lot of people out.
it is a problem, and suddenly resumes look beautiful.
Look fantastic.
So I don't even read them anymore. I ask people to come in and say, pick up the computer,
Yeah.
turn it on, and you'd be surprised how many people fail at that point.
Yeah, that's even scarier.
But we will continue to use it where it makes sense, and we'll continue to use LLMs where it makes sense. We continue to improve our algorithms, our machine learning to better ThreatLocker.
So somebody wants to know their DAC report gave them 94% score. It's all a lie now? Yes, no?
Oh, I don't know. So there is. It sounds like a lie because I haven't managed to get a 94% score. We're at the.
Hey, but maybe you'll get 100 when we turn it back on. Who knows?
Okay, so someone sent me a 100% score yesterday. There's a couple of things to consider with your DAC report. First of all, it only fails things if you're on the latest agent version. So make sure you're on the latest agent version. There is a problem in that we're migrating the databases to live databases, which is causing some of the math to go wrong because half of the data is in one database and another. DAC is technically not live. It's in a pre-release. The risk is you get the bad score. It might be, what I would do is look at the list of failures as opposed to look at the mathematical calculations, because that will help you determine what's actually failed as high and critical. I will say with almost certainty, it is impossible to get a 100% score. And the reason I'll say that is you need things to get a 100% score. You need things like smart card readers to be active and used in your environment, which most laptops don't come with. And there are so many configurations on there. It's impossible because you'd have to enable every Windows feature. And also you'll probably end up having your machine unusable if you enable every feature combined. What else do we got?
have a question from Thomas. Why does the web filter hate the fact that I live in Sussex and all websites that have Sussex in the name?
That is actually the first time I've heard that.
An interesting one.
An interesting one. And that will be the AI
Maybe
part
you
of it.
should move.
Yeah, that would be the AI part of it, determining. And by the way, they should correct themselves really quickly because when something's
Yeah.
classified, it then goes to a human immediately.
He did highlight the end of it in very capital letters.
Sussex, yeah.
Sussex.
Okay, that's a really good one. We have got our friend Avi on as well. Remember Avi?
Yep. He sent a lot of questions in here.
Oh, he sent a lot of questions, and one of them is, and Avi is very kindly allowed me to sit on his motorcycle to get a really cool picture at Zero Trust World.
24.
In my Terminator.
Yeah.
So I wasn't going to go all out and get a Harley, but I appreciate it. So he asked, do we want to be able to detect a mouse jiggler in Detect? Technically, you can create a custom policy right now. We should definitely put one. I don't know if it's a indicator of compromise, but it's an indicator of lazy ass employees. So I think having a he said software, hardware. That's actually a really interesting one. No, so you can do it through software now. I don't know if you can do it through hardware. I don't think you can.
Remember the time you tried to do the mouse would electrocute people?
I did do the mouse.
It failed, but
no, it didn't. Just to be clear, it didn't fail. It just didn't. It worked with the battery. It just gave you 9 volts. So if you had wet hands, you could feel the electrocution.
Yeah.
And just a little bit.
Fun project.
A little bit of context. Back in 2017, when we first created ThreatLocker, when we didn't have any customers.
Yeah. We had more time on our hands.
I got a USB relay switch.
That's a dog collar as well.
We tried the dog collar. That's why I couldn't get the dog collar apart.
Yeah.
And we wired it to a mouse. And in the event that ThreatLocker blocked something, it would shock you. And we weren't really going to sell it, but we thought it was going to be a good. And then
gimmick. I mean,
we did try the dog collar, and I really struggled to get the dog collar apart because I figured if I can use the relay switch to trigger the dog collar to shock you or her, the shock collar for the dog, if I it didn't. I never managed to get the dog collar pulled apart, and I actually had to start doing some real work. The idea is I was going to do a little bit of a marketing gimmick that shocks you with the dog collar, and ask anyone to try and run software and get past ThreatLocker, and at a trade show and see if they're willing to get shocked. I figured it'd probably get me in trouble.
Give it to somebody for Zero Trust World, yeah.
We should put it as the what should we do? We have the what do they call that thing we give away the PC?
Pawn.
Pontoon, yes. We should make it with an electrified mouse.
So if they start to get close, it shocks them.
Yeah, if they if they do anything wrong, if they get caught doing something wrong, it just gives them like a few thousand volts.
Okay, wired into the power instead of a 12 volt.
Okay, what else have we got? A lot.
Will network control policy list get flattened like you recently did with application control? It's painful if you have per device override rules in place. Also, you currently have to go to computers by computer in the drop down if you want to audit policy configurations for a given customer. Ideally, we should have all policies option for network control that shows everything on one screen.
Okay, the answer is yes. I think we discussed it already, but I might be answering these in the wrong order too. I love the flat policies on application control. Like I said, it makes it so much easier because I can put one policy at the top and then make overrides at the computer level. It is yes, and it is prioritized in ThreatLocker. It will be done, I hope, by the end of this year, because I've put it as a really important priority, because it's annoying me as well that I'd like to create a denial policy at the organization and then add exceptions at the computer levels, rather than having a denial per group.
Okay, so why don't you allow tags for destinations on network control? This requires me to create lots of policies across lots of devices, and the more policies you need to maintain, the greater chance of an error.
Why aren't you allowed to use tags on... Sorry, I was reading...
For destinations on network control.
I would love to know a real example of how you'd have a tag on a destination for network control on inbound traffic. They didn't say inbound, no?
No. This is AV, so maybe he needs to come in and work with his solutions engineer.
No, I mean, like, if you can use tags for outbound on network control. Let me just check. I'm onto network control because maybe something got accidentally removed. But you can't use them on inbound for network control, because the inbound on network control, you're going to yourself. How would you couldn't possibly have like a whole list of IP addresses on one machine that you'd want to put in a tag, and it would be pointless if you did. So if I go in, if I look stupid now, okay, inbound, outbound, destination, selected, tag. Yeah, I can use tags.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's something what you meant, but it should work on outbound as well. Okay.
Okay, let me find another good one. So I've discussed with full local consoles with Rob, but I was wondering how you would respond to a customer that is interested in ThreatLocker but concerned about external factors, e.g. hurricanes, telco outages, interfering with access, web admin console. Basically, everything goes offline.
Look, I mean, and look, we've had some issues over the last few weeks, so we know what going offline looks like. I mean, and that's one of the reasons we have override codes in ThreatLocker. So in the event that you lost complete access to the internet, you can enter an override code. You can also enter an override code, a little tip, from a USB drive. So if you save the override code into a file called override on a USB, plug it into a machine, it will immediately go into effect. So you don't have to type it in. You can do it from boot. But if you have an outage or you can't get to the internet, then you can just use those override codes to allow something temporarily, and then as soon as it checks in, the override code goes away.
Okay. Can we get the policy ID field added to the active NAC policy report? This will help with comparing policies across groups.
DAC report?
No, he said NAC report.
I assume... Okay, let's go into... Report. I'm going to go and have a look at this now. I've got to find something. Admin store, BitLocker enabled. Let's try this one. No, that's high encryption. Remote desktop sessions. I'm trying to find something that would have a policy. I don't have anything. These are all non-policy ones that would hit the wrong policy. I.e., so what we're saying is the policy that it hit should hit
The policy ID field added to the active NAC policy report.
active NAC policy report. Oh, maybe there's I honestly don't. I don't know if that's a custom report or whether you're talking about DAC. 'Cause if it's a report, you can definitely have anything you want added to it. But it's I don't know if that's, but if it's a DAC report, I where you say something came down and said, hey, it failed, it hit this policy. I believe there's a link to the policy and you can click on it and see the policy ID immediately. So maybe if we got some extra clarification on that, that would be good.
Okay. How can ThreatLocker protect against PowerShell attacks?
So the biggest area is ring fencing. So PowerShell is one of the most dangerous tools that comes with Windows. It's also one of the most powerful tools that comes with Windows. It gives you the ability to run remote code. It can encrypt files. It can upload things to the internet. It can do lots and lots and lots of things on your machine, including run untrusted software. There's two parts to the defense, if you like, with PowerShell. Well, of course, the first part would be to block PowerShell completely from running. If you can block PowerShell from running, then that removes all the risk. Unfortunately, there are so many programs that use PowerShell now, it's very, very difficult to just completely block PowerShell from running. So the next thing I would say is make sure PowerShell's limited, ring fence it, limit what it can do. And this isn't just PowerShell, it's every single application on your machine, but PowerShell should be the first one you do. Out of the box, it is ring fenced by default, so it can't access any of your protected files, and it cannot access the internet except for explicit exclusions. And I'll show you how to do this just here. We go into application control and we go to, I'm going to search PowerShell here. And you see I've got a few PowerShell constraint mode because I run constraint mode. I don't allow full mode. Again, you can only allow constraint mode. That will help reduce attacks too. But if you need to allow full mode, you can do that. So I've got two PowerShell policies here, workstations and servers. They're both the same. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to promote mine to the entire organization level and just refresh that. I should get rid of my... I guess it's taken us, oh, there you go, promoted to the entire organization. And this is what I'm going to set my policy to PowerShell. So by default, out of the box, we don't want PowerShell to go out to the internet. If it can't go out to the internet, it can't upload files, it can't run things like Red Rabbit, remote code. And we also don't want it to be able to access our files. So we don't want it to encrypt, access our files. If you want to know what types of files it's monitoring, you can click here. I've got some extensions in here. It'll also monitor anything you've got a storage policy for, but this by default. So if you, by default, we have documents in the storage policy, OneDrive, I think, network shares. But you can add any extensions or you can add paths in here. So you can say, hey, my private files. I won't say private files because that's bad. I'll say my files, I want to make sure they're protected. So this is now monitored by all ring fencing. And if PowerShell tries to access any of those files, it won't be able to access them. We have to accept PowerShell can be compromised, but it's also limit what it can do. Don't let it see your files. The other cool new feature we added is what can call PowerShell. So this is really cool because you can say, I want to limit which applications can call PowerShell. So I could say, for example, I want Windows File Explorer to call PowerShell. I could say I want, I'll say Office Installer because I know Office Installer uses PowerShell. And I can say no other programs can call PowerShell. That will stop the attacks as well. By default, we actually do this the other way around. So if I go to my Office policy here, and there's two ways you can do this. I can say in my Office policy, you're not allowed to call PowerShell because we know Office doesn't need to. That's a default policy. This is really going to reduce your probability of a PowerShell attack, and actually, in 99% of cases, completely mitigate it. If you don't know what PowerShell needs to do in your environment, there's a really cool feature here. Go into PowerShell policy, and just hit this electric button here. So it will tell you all of the files that PowerShell has accessed. You can obviously none in my environment, and you can also do this and see all of the websites that PowerShell's gone to. Again, none in my environment because it would have pre-populated them. So make sure you're running ThreatLocker for a little bit before you hit that. It'll actually tell you what it's doing, so you're not turning that policy on blind.
Okay, next question. When users create an application request or UAC request, we have to set it up to create a ticket in my PSA auto task. Is there any plans to update the PSA ticket when it's approved, rejected on the ThreatLocker side? Same thing for hero escalations. They send an email, but it would be great if they could just update the ticket already created.
So if something is approved, it should close the ticket. Is that did you read that?
Okay, when users create an application request or UAC request, we have to set it up to create a ticket in my PSA auto task. So I think there's kind of like two
So
steps.
there's an integration, but
Yeah,
that's
an
set up.
integration,
That's set up to send it to your PSA, which is
Yeah.
fine.
Is there plans to update the PSA ticket when it's approved, rejected on the ThreatLocker side? So basically an auto update back to.
Let me see if I've got. So the auto task is Datto, I believe, if I get this right.
And
Okay.
the same thing for the hero escalations. They send an email, but it would be great if we could just update the ticket already created.
So I don't know about I think it's Datto. PSA. Oh, it's not gonna let me do anything. The answer is it unless there's a reason in Datto you can't, it should.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go and log it as a bug, and they can either come back and say Datto doesn't support this, which seems unlikely. I know you can do it in other PSAs where it'll close the ticket automatically. I can't understand why it wouldn't close the ticket now. So I'm going to go and say that it should close the ticket. I don't know about escalations. Does it?
With the
Honestly,
cyber
I've
hero.
never been asked that, but I know in a lot of PSAs we close the ticket out, and in some cases we can even read from various ticketing systems to actually auto approve or reject something if it was rejected in the ticket. So I'm going to have that listed and logged as potentially a bug if it's not working. The only reason it wouldn't be a bug is if it's impossible inside Datto to actually close the
Make it
ticket.
work, yeah. What are your plans for Saudi Arabia market? Are you planning local support here?
So we currently have an office in Dubai.
In Dubai.
We have data centers in Saudi Arabia, and we have local people in Dubai that will support and make sure you get onboarding. I think we have some personnel in Saudi, but it's very, very limited. But most of our Middle East operations happen from Dubai, and Alessandro runs that team.
We've just added more salespeople to that team. We are looking for engineers in the region.
Yeah, but we've got some engineers in the region already, but we're also hiring engineers in the region to better support. We have quite a few large clients in Saudi Arabia and in the Middle East. Okay.
So what are your DNS baseline recommendations? We're finding it's not blocking a lot of phishing domains or hijack domains that redirect.
So, I want to separate DNS and web controller because technically they're two separate things. And technically they get the same databases. I would be, and I haven't seen any reports of it not blocking phishing, but the way it works is essentially we look for bad lists of software domains, known malicious sites, and then we add them to the list. And when a new site comes out, we go and catalog it and see if it's phishing or we believe it might be phishing from day one. If you've got examples, this would be absolutely fantastic. I think we have to realize that as part of the idea of detection is we're always responding after a site is known to be bad. However, you can change the way you configure it depending on your environment. You could say that only allow categorized domains, only allow business domains, only allow the set categories you want. So if you go into web control here and look at your policies, we have basically here's a list of categories that were allowed or disallowed. You can go and change them, but you can also create a policy at the bottom. And these policies, just like everything else, run in order where we say if it doesn't match one of these categories, do this. I'm not sure if there's an unclassified. Oh, there's an unclassified here, yeah. So we'd say if the category is unclassified, so we don't know what it is, deny it and allow the user to request it. If you're using Cyber Hero support, they will actually classify it for them, and they're pretty quick at that. So now, if you're doing that, it's a good idea to put it at the bottom because it'll run through the policies until it hits something. And that could help with that. But I would also appreciate if you have any examples, forward them on. We do rely, just like everybody else, on external data for phishing examples. Phishing sites, we're constantly improving. How can we detect them in real time? Can we look at them? Can we parse them? A lot of the time, what phishing sites will do is they'll actually put something on the page, send a mass email out, and then they'll change the contents of the page later on. So it's harder to classify it, or somebody clicks on it the first time, we classify it because it looks like a sewing site or a something else site, and then they change the contents of the site later on. But if you've got examples, please submit them. I haven't seen any myself, but I know we rely on the idea of this is a detection of bad lists. Unclassified would be a smarter way of actually blocking them all.
Okay, with the newer web control module, the dashboard has some nice visuals, but we don't see any customer reports regarding this module. I have to present this info to clients fairly regularly. Are we going to add additional reporting?
So custom reports are custom reports, which means they can be anything you want them to be, and you can ask for those custom reports. You can also go into, there's a new report builder here. I'm trying to remember where it is now. I'm on the alpha portal. Let me go on to, I'm going to go into a new window because I'm on our pre-release portal right now. If we go into, I don't even have it. Scheduled reports here. We can also build our own scheduled reports out, and you can. It's been a while since I did this test. Put logos, select a category. So I can say audit. So the audit would be the web report. So let's use existing report. I can also basically query anything from the unified audit. So if I said action type equals, action. I say action type equals network. Now this is you building them out yourself, but we can also help you build them out. Network, and let's just for argument's sake say parent process. I think I can, it's an application ID. I'll just say name. Parent process name. I'll just say MS Edge for now, or Chrome. I can say group by web policy name. So what, and time frame the last 7 days. So this would just give you an example of every policy that's hit web control, and it's very raw policy that I just created. So you can create your own reports. You can also request reports, and your engineer can help you create them if needs be.
We have another question here regarding reports. They want to, as an example, if somebody deletes something from a local hard drive, can they run a report to see who deleted it and when it was deleted in the audit?
Well, you can run, and I'll classify it in two different things. There's an audit which shows absolutely everything that happens in your system. So if something's deleted, you can always go in here and say, show me delete, hit search, and it will show you every delete in your system, who did it, what process did it. So for example, I've got this one random DLL that got deleted, or sorry, JPEG file. It was deleted by login.ui, so clearly not a user. It's some kind of system event. We can see the username is actually system. We can see all of that details there. So if someone's deleting a file, you can find that. They copy it to a USB. Was the drive encrypted? Everything that's happening. And then you can, of course, run a report to say, show me everything that was deleted in a week. And that would be the same thing. So you'd say, I want to create if we go back to our reports page, scheduled reports, I could just create a custom report here, say email all deletes, and this would just send a report once a week to say, again, these are predefined. Let me just say I'm going to create a new one. Action type equals delete, and I can say group by username, and it'll give you, if I group by something, it's quite cool. So if I say group by username, I could see just what that would do then is it would give me a time frame last 7 days. I can preview it quickly in here to see what I'm going to see. And it'll say here, it'll give you basically this. Hey, I've got a count of 8 by system. I've got a count of 1 by Danny. And I've got a count of 1 by Sami. And I could then say, send it to this email address if we wanted it scheduled periodically.
Okay. Is there ability to view a process tree? We get notifications of denies on the host file, but we can only see that cmd.exe try to access. I've tried to find a way to find which process fired off the command prompt to try to edit.
Okay, so what you can see is everything that call. So we don't have a tree, and we are working on a tree. But what you can see right now is if you know that CMD was launched, you can go into. So let's try and find. Let's just look in my unified audit here. I can go into say here. I can see that this was called by this process path. So I can click on this process, and it will show me everything that called this. Now this was probably ran at system start, so I can't actually see anything there. And so I deleted it when I did it. So I probably find something that would have spawned later on after the system started. I don't have much on my machine other than, so I've got here Edge, for example. If I click on Edge, why can I not see what launched Edge? Oh, that's a bug. And I guess it's going to clear out my my thing. So that's actually a bug. You should be able to click on it and then see what. Oh no, we're calling the full path. That's correct. Why is it not showing me full path matches Edge? More details. If I click on Edge, did I go back more days? Okay, so that you should be able to click on this. Here's the problem with my machine right now. I would keep stopping the service, starting the service, so I may not have had anything logged. But when you click on the process path here, it's actually going to show you everything that then opened that process, and you'll be able to see what opened it. I'm not sure why it's not working on mine, but you can definitely get the data. It's not through a tree, but it is through a similar mechanism.
There's a couple of questions there about performance improvement and what we're going to do to address the issues we had.
Okay, so the last few weeks of issues that we've had, ultimately the majority of the issue was getting DDoS is not uncommon in our industry, and isolating DDoS is not difficult, either. But what essentially caused problems, and I'm going to oversimplify this, if we had, for example, 1,000 endpoints, I say, and they connect to ThreatLocker every minute, and they tell us ship this unified audit log to ThreatLocker every minute. And within any minute period, 20% of those are shipping logs. And I'm using this as one part of the example. It's much more complex. There's a lot more pages than this. What happens is every minute we expect to get 20% of the machines. If something happened where our network went offline for 5 minutes, just for argument's sake, through some kind of DDoS, and then we recovered it, we isolated machines that were causing problems, IP addresses that were causing problems, and 5 minutes later, we now essentially have 100% of machines trying to send us those logs at the same time, which hasn't happened before. So what this caused is the APIs to basically overload and say, I'm dropping the connection. And then that's made it worse because it dropped the connection and then everything tried again. And every time it tries again, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And suddenly we've got millions of machines sending us logs all at the same time. And these logs are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so first of all, what have we done? I mean, in terms of actually dealing with DDoS, we have put more improvements in. We've created tripled our firewall capacity to make sure that doesn't happen again. In addition to this, we implemented queuing. So rather than us taking the log and inserting them, we take the log and say, I'm accepting it, I'm releasing it back to the client. I can process them over the next 5 minutes if I have to, if we get a delay. So we can absorb that impact. And that's probably the biggest thing we've made a change. In addition to this, of course, if you're on, we've got 15 instances around the world. If you're on instance H or G, they are the biggest instances we have, and hence why they took longer to recover after any incident, whereas like instance B or E was seconds really, and then other instances took longer. We are splitting out instance H to double our capacity. So in the event that anything happens, we've just got a lot more headroom to move. We've done a huge amount. We've changed code. We've added queuing items. We've implemented better DDoS systems. We've tripled our firewall capacity. All of this has happened to make sure that doesn't happen again. And we're still doing more. We're adding more servers in. Unfortunately, it takes time to get servers deployed to data centers, but we are adding more servers out. We're expanding our data center. But one thing we are doing is splitting out instance H, and we will be sending an email for anyone in instance H to say, hey, we're looking for anyone who's willing to move to it. We're not doing it through a migration, so you don't have to re-download your files. We're doing it through a split, but you'll have to essentially have to make sure your firewall allows the new instance URL to go through it, and then we're going to migrate those customers over to a new instance, which gives us far more capacity. I'm feeling a lot more confident than I was a week ago. We have made significant changes, and I must say our infrastructure team, our development team,
Support team.
support team
Worked a
did it.
lot of overtime.
So I'm feeling very confident that that's not going to happen again. Of course, we are a technology company, so there's always some kind of blip that's happening, but we're in a lot better state than we were 2 weeks ago.
I think
And
you have already covered this. DAC is disabled at the moment.
partially depends on
disabled.
your instance. We are migrating
So
instances.
instance H.
Yes, it may be disabled for instance because we're migrating it to live, so it will be live, and once it's live, that will help with the performance on DAC as well. Okay, I think we are out of time. I apologize if we didn't answer your questions.
There's a lot of questions here.
We will be hosting another webinar to show the new detect stuff off. So that's really, really important. So we look forward to seeing everyone at that webinar. Oh, is it up on the screen here? No, this is...
That's the ring fencing next.
So we have ring fencing scheduled for December 16th. We may change this, so we're going to go and look at where we are on the detect to switch it out to the detect webinar, or we may just add a second one on the calendar. But if you get time, December 16th, 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern time, and 4 p.m. I'm pretty sure we're not on daylight time on any of those, so we'll update those. They will actually be it says Pacific Daylight, Eastern Daylight, and British Standard Time for London, but it's actually more like EST, PST, and GMT. So we look forward to seeing everyone at that webinar. And I think, Sami, thank you for joining me. First time, I think.
Yeah, first time. I'm usually incognito, so.
So, thank you for watching, everybody.
Thank you.